What is up, everyone? Welcome to HiFi Turtle, the leading reptile-adjacent audio page on the internet, getting the audiophile out of their shell. If you've been following my page for the last few months, you know that I recently replaced my Focal Sopra 2 with the Dynaudio Confidence 50. And if you haven't seen that, you're probably not subscribed. So make sure you subscribe, you follow on Instagram, check the links below in the description. Really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow, and I can continue to make content like this for all you out there. This has just been a dream speaker for me for a long time. The Dynaudio room was my best sounding room for Exponent 2022. It's been a speaker that I've heard several times at Exponent and also a couple times at dealers, and every time I just listen to it, I'm thinking, wow, how could it get any better than that? So this is something that was definitely on my radar, and when the opportunity presented itself, because I did get these used, I had to jump on it. I just had to jump on it because I needed to have this speaker. I needed to hear if the same things I was hearing at these shows, at these dealers, was truly the way that this speaker sounds. And let me tell you, spoiler alert, I'll get more into details, but it is a fantastic sounding speaker. And don't get me wrong, at $33,500 for the Confidence 50, they should be an amazing sounding speaker. This is the flagship series from Dynaudio, only surpassed by their bigger brother, the Confidence 60. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Dynaudio, they are a legendary speaker manufacturer that have been part of the audiophile world for well over 40 years, and the Confidence series, like I said earlier, is their flagship product. Now, what was interesting to me, when these debuted in 2019, they not only replaced the older Confidence series, they also replaced the Evidence series, which was Dynaudio's flagship ultimate reference speaker, much bigger and much more expensive than the Confidence. Some of those models extending well into the six-figure range. So when Dynaudio came out with these and replaced and said that these sound better than the Evidence at some points, less than half the cost, it was kind of shocking to me. But again, if you listen to these, you will know why these are so special, why these can replace a $100,000 speaker. And in fact, later in this review, I will compare these to a $100,000 speaker. In Dynaudio's over 40 years of audio experience, they have done a lot of things. But one thing that has maintained itself for a very long time is their love and use for their MSP cones. Now, of course, this has gone through many different generations, and the Confidence is the latest and best version of MSP, MSP being magnesium silicate polymer, and this is a magnesium and glass essentially mix polymer that forms the cones in the speaker, and actually not only forms the cones, but also the dust cap itself is also made of this. So it is a very homogeneous and thick and rigid cone that they are using for the bass and the mid-range. For the tweeter, they're using the latest and greatest as well. This is the Essitar 3 tweeter from Dynaudio. Dynaudio also legendary for their tweeter designs all the way back to the early T330, I believe it was, and now the Essitar in its third generation is just fantastic. There's a lot that's going into this. It is a soft dome tweeter that has a proprietary coating over it, and we'll go more into that in a minute. Unique to the Confidence is the use of this Compex baffle that the drivers are all mounted to. The drivers themselves are separated from the baffle with isolation rings, and then again from the cabinet with another series of isolation rings to maximize the reduction in resonance and vibration traveling into the cabinet from the drivers. The cabinet itself is made of a thick MDF, and it ports out the bottom of the speaker. It has two vents on the side of the speaker, and what's interesting is inside of the venting area is actually a structure that I don't think many people have seen. There's a structure inside here that essentially diffuses the sound that is coming out of the port, and maybe some of the air as well. When you put your hand next to the vents on the side, there really isn't a lot of air that's coming out of the speaker. On most ported speakers, when you're really bumping, you're gonna feel a lot of port air coming out. On the Confidence, you really don't feel a lot of air coming out. I don't know if that's just by design or it's something to do with the structure and how it's diffusing the air coming out of the port, how it's tuning that frequency. It's really interesting. But again, it's a very purposed and engineered design from Dynaudio that I can't say I've seen on a lot of other speakers. There are two 7-inch bass drivers and two 6-inch mid-ranges. They are made of that MSP material that I had mentioned earlier. On the mid-range, we see the surround is unique in the fact that it is flush with the curvature of the cone. Dynaudio says that this effectively extends the size of the cone, but also minimizes diffractions that you would see versus a semi-roll surround. So with the two mid-ranges, we do see this Audiophile design, the mid-range tweeter mid-range, and this effectively makes a source point for the mid-range and the treble. Now, I know what you're thinking, Ray, that's not a source point speaker. I've seen the MoFi source points, I've seen the KEF Uniqs, I've seen Tenoi, I've seen Fine, I've seen it all. And I can tell you, just from looking at it, that's not a source point speaker, bud. So while it doesn't appear as a single point source like you'd see on the KEF Uniq drivers, the idea is that in the sandwiching of the mid-range tweeter and mid-range, the mid-range frequency wavelength is long enough to extend into the tweeter wavelength. So you have the mid-range wavelength, again, the other mid-range wavelength, sandwiching the tweeter and mixing in a way that creates that single source point eminence of the mid-range and treble frequency bands. So while the drivers themselves are separate, the effect is that it comes from a single point source. Drop some knowledge on you. Coming back to the Essitar 3 tweeter, not only is the tweeter itself amazing, again, it's a soft dome with a proprietary coating over it. Behind that soft dome is a 3D printed structure that diffracts and defeats the waves that are coming off the back of the tweeter. This is something that Dynaudio calls the Hexus inner dome. It's something that's not only found in the Confidence range and a couple of the other series as well, but it is a very interesting design. It is something that you can't see from the outside, but it's doing a lot on the inside of this speaker. And then the tweeter is mounted in the baffle in something that Dynaudio calls DDC lens. This is the second generation of the DDC lens. This is something that directs the tweeter. It's not exactly a waveguide. It is waveguide-ish in a way, but it directs the direction of the treble frequency and minimizes the reflections that you would hear from the floor and the ceiling, which is typically something that a lot of audiophiles don't treat. Or if you are treating it with just a rug, well, it's not a very effective treatment. But don't worry, Dynaudio's got you covered there. Then the drivers themselves are all driven by these neodymium motors. The neodymium motor I actually got to see at Expona. They had a suitcase with some of their drivers. Some of them were from the Contour series, but they had a few from the Confidence series. So I got to see the tweeter. Also, the tweeter exploded out, and one of the bass drivers from the Confidence. It was a really interesting motor design. It actually looks very familiar to another speaker that is near $1 million. So it's curious to see a speaker that just came out near $1 million using a very similar looking motor magnet structure to the bass drivers you find in the, well, $33,000 Confidence, a speaker that came out in 2019, mind you. And then there's the crossover, which is actually a very simple looking design. I'll put some pictures up here from Dynaudio's website. All y'all that are in the crossover police can comment as you will. It helps with the engagement, so go ahead. For pairing with the Confidence, I use several different components. I got the opportunity to use them with the Sim Audio North Collection, which is something that I've seen them presented with at several different shows, as well as the SPL M1000s, as well as the S800 from SPL, my long-standing amplifier, the Hagel H20, for preamplification. Also, again, the Sim Audio North 791, the Benchmark LA4. I got to use the Benchmark DAC 3, as well as the Electro Compagnie ECM 1 Mark II. For a long time, and something that I think audiophiles just repeat the same thing throughout the decades and their opinion will never change and it can never be swayed because there's no way these companies would ever change, is the fact that Dynaudio requires a ton of power, a ton of watts, well more than what they spec for, which the power handling on the 50s is into 400 watts per channel. The Hagel H20 is 250 watts. The SPL M1000 is 1,000 watts. So again, this is well into the range and well above the range. And I don't think that the Hagel H20 was any slouch. I think what's more important is that if you look at the impedance curve for these speakers, at least the one that for the Confidence 30 that's published on Stereophile, you will see that this speaker is very punishing. The impedance curves are pretty crazy for a speaker. So you really need to make sure that you have a very solid and high quality amplifier that is capable of driving such impedances, including those down into 2 ohms. Again, that reference that I'm talking about from Stereophile was for the Confidence 30. This is the Confidence 50. I'm assuming it's a little different, but the Confidence 50 does show that its minimum impedance is 2.7 ohms. So you want to make sure that you have an amplifier that's capable of driving those low impedances. Okay, I think that's enough about this speaker. Again, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of engineering. There's a lot of cool stuff. I think the only thing thus far that I can subtract from the Confidence is just the looks. I know this is a little polarizing. A lot of people don't like the baffle. Some people really love the baffle. I am one of those people. I think it reminds me of my Focal Canta, which I still think is one of the best looking speakers on the market at any price point. So to see the baffle again here on the Confidence is very nice. I think it is an upgrade to the baffle on the old Confidence series that was kind of just there. This is more contoured, a little sexier and nicer looking than that. The cabinet is a little nicer. It's got that thin design. It's got that, well, long and thin design, or deep and thin design, I guess you would call it. The only thing is, I would say that the finish is perhaps lacking for a $33,000 loudspeaker, $33,500 loudspeaker, to get nitpicky. These finishes are not over the top. They're not the ultimate. They're not getting compared to Bugatti and Lamborghini and Ferrari finishes, things of that nature. It's a very subdued and plainer design. That's something that Dynaudio has kind of always done. So again, that might be the one subtraction. People don't like the baffle. It might be a little plainer for some people, you know, but I still think it's a very good looking speaker. And at the end of the day, from what the Danes are trying to tell you is, you're not buying this speaker for the looks. You're buying this speaker for the sound. That's what you're trying to buy it for, right? I hope you are. And it's a good sounding speaker. It's a really good sounding speaker. So with that, let's get into the sound. Like I said at the beginning, I've had this speaker for several months, and it is a very special speaker. So I wanted to make sure that in the review, when it came to the important part, how it sounds, what it sounds like, the comparisons, that I was confident in what I said. And like I said earlier, there are conceptions that people have about Dynaudio that I think are just flat out wrong. And their opinion was something that was formed 30 years ago or 20 years ago. And for whatever reason, they have just not been willing to change that. Or it's something they heard online and they just go out and repeat it. And trust me, I've heard that so many times from audiophiles who have never heard a certain component. They read something about it online and then they reiterate that like it is their God honest truth. And they've just never heard it. So one of the misconceptions I think about Dynaudio, at least with the Confidence series, is that people say Dynaudio on the treble side is weak, the treble is light, it is a speaker for people who hate treble, who have a low tolerance to harshness at the top, who have a low tolerance to anything sibilant, anything like that. Now, I'm not saying that this is a sibilant or harsh speaker, now don't get me wrong. This speaker does treble like you would not believe. The Essitar 3 is, I'm going to say it, the best tweeter I have ever heard. And I'm talking better than the Borson M3 that I heard at Expona last year. I am talking better than the Wilson Alex V. I know that, whoa, that's crazy. That's just from what I have heard. You know, in an ideal listening environment and many other different circumstances, maybe it's a little different. But this tweeter is on par or better than those. And those I would consider some of the best, if not the best tweeters in the absolute world. There's no contest. And the Dynaudio Confidence 50, and by the way, it's the same tweeter all throughout the entire series. So like even on the $13,000 Confidence 20, the bookshelf, like it's the same tweeter. This thing can go toe to toe, fist to fist, with the big boys. The 100,000, the near $1 million ones, wouldn't bat an eye. It's so good. It's so detailed. It's bright, it's beautiful, it's shiny when it needs to be. But at the same time, on songs where you would otherwise running out of the room because of how harsh they are, this tweeter somehow finds a way to subdue that and not make it so harsh. It's magic. It's almost like the speaker has some sort of like DSP or correction in it, but it doesn't. It's a passive speaker, which is just so mind-blowing. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did it. And I'm sure the Dynaudio engineers are going to be smiling and high-fiving and things of that nature if they watch this, because I know they did something to do this, and I know that they know the secret, and they did it. By God, they did it. The detail on this blows the Sopra 2, the beryllium tweeter, the famous beryllium Vocal tweeter, out of the water. It's not even close. The beryllium tweeter from the Vocal, bah, get that out of there. Put the Essitar 3 in. Let's get something serious going here, because this thing, I can't say enough good things about this. And if you listen to the speaker, if you have the opportunity to listen to something from the Confidence series, you will, that's probably the first thing you will notice. The first thing you will notice is the detail, the absolute truth, and the fantastic sound coming from that tweeter on every frequency that it plays. I'm telling you, you got to hear that. And if you don't hear that, comment below. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me something else. Tell me what you heard, because what I'm hearing, it's unsurpassed. It's unbelievable. I cannot fathom it. It's the first thing that you're going to notice. I had bass therapy here at Exponent when we went to Exponent last month, and it's the first thing he commented on. He was like, "How is this tweeter so good?" And I know I've been going on about a tweeter for I think probably like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I don't even know, but I'm telling you, it's so good. I gotta evangelize it to you. I gotta tell you how good it is, because it really is that good. Again, it's detailed when it needs to be. It's smooth when it needs to be. It's laid back when it needs to be. It's forward when it needs to be. It presents itself. It sound stages. It images. It does it all. It's too good. It's too good. I don't know how Dynaudio can do it better. If there's an Essitar 4, I need to be the first one to hear it, because I cannot fathom a better sounding tweeter than what I'm hearing on the Confidence. Okay, can we end the review there? Is that enough? Can we just talk about treble? Is that good enough for the review? Probably not. Probably not. So let's talk about the mid-range, right? So I mean, the mid-range. I know I say this in probably every review as well, and I am sure that a lot of other reviewers say this as well, is the idea of like that singer in the room, the lifelikeness of the singer, that phantom image, the panning, all that sort of stuff. You can hear the lips smacking, whatever. Oh my, the 3D-ness, I mean, it's like the difference between like a 3D movie and like a really good like hologram, if you will. I'm almost kind of like harking back to like that Tupac hologram from that concert that was, you know, so long ago. Like that lifeness, that ability to step out and be there versus like what you're typically used to when it comes to like the idea of like a 3D image is so surreal. And the depth of the soundstage, the imaging of the speaker is so wonderful, so expansive, so deep, so true that you really do feel like that concert-like, that huge room experience. And even in my room that is certainly small, and I almost thought it was too small for this speaker. I think I'm just there. I will say that if the speaker was in a bigger room, I think it would sound even better, which is hard to believe. It's hard to believe for me, but I do think it would sound a little bit better if my room was a little bit bigger. I did have to space the speaker out quite a bit in order for it to sound this good. So I know some of y'all out there that see some pictures and see this video are probably going to say, "Hey, move those speakers away from the wall, butto." I can tell you, I moved them away from the wall. They need to be this close to the wall to sound good in this room. I'm sorry, that's just the fact of this room. I've got a lot of treatment. I hope that it sounds really good. I think it sounds unbelievable, as if you haven't figured that out already, but that's just the reality of this speaker that in my room. So take that as you will. But again, the vocal clarity, the smoothness, the effects on the guitars, like I know that guitar people are really into like tone and like pedals and things of that nature. Like the Confidence picks out those different tones, those different pedals effects better than any speaker. And I know that when you move into like the audiophile world, there's a lot of things to be like, oh, I've never heard that before. And I feel like you don't get those same kind of moments with music as you move up the line, especially as you get more and more into the more expensive gear. But this is one of those moments where I'm just like, you think you know a song, you listen to it, and then you're like, I did not know this song. I was unfamiliar with this song until I heard it on the Confidence. So that's just, it's just unbelievable. Okay. I gotta say something bad about the speaker, right? I gotta say something that's not as glowing as the last like 8 minutes or so have been. This review is really long. This is a really long review, which is how you know that I really like the speaker, because I'm going on very passionately about how much I like this. Okay, gotta say something bad. The bass. All right, bass is good. Bass is very natural. I would say that it is neutral. It's not very forward. It is forward when it needs to be, which again is something that I'm trying to wrap my head around, because I'm like, why is it forward in some songs but laid back in others and then neutral in others? Like, how does it do that? How does it know when to put the sound in front of me and then move it back and then make it neutral? How does it do that? I don't understand. The Dynaudio engineers, they're doing something. Wait, I'm supposed to say something bad. I'm supposed to say something bad about the bass. Okay. The bass, it's not as sharp as the Focal Sopra. I will give it that. The Focal Sopra bass is it's got a tone to it that people either love or hate, and I personally love it. So while the Confidence is giving me what I believe is a more neutral presentation, a more true presentation of the bass in my room, it's not the most exciting, it's not the most luscious or amazing presentation of bass. It's not the tightest bass either. So I will say that while it's not as soft or as laid back as something like a Sonus Faber, it's kind of in between the bass of like a Wilson and then Focal. So there's a little bit of sharpness, but it's definitely not as sharp and not as punchy as the Focal Sopra was. So I guess that's the one bad thing I can say, and maybe that there's a lot of bass, and again, in a small room like mine, it sometimes can get a little overwhelming at times, or you got to think like, I wish I could turn the bass maybe that's down like 1 dB or something like that. But that's probably my only complaint, is the bass is a little, it's okay. But at the same time, it's amazing. It still is like really good sounding. Like I had to say something bad, but I mean, it's still really good. I'm getting lost talking about the speaker. I should talk about the music too, right? Like I listen to a lot of stuff on this. I listen to some electronic, listen to some metal, listen to some rock, a lot of K-pop from my wife's perspective, some girly pop out there. Listen to the new Dua Lipa album, awesome. Listen to the new Charlie XCX singles that have come out, awesome. I listened to this band called Wind Waker that I discovered, and it's something that high school me would have loved. I can't say that I'm super crazy about it, but it's definitely something high school me would have been really into. I know that's not the best recorded sound, and it sounded really good. I listened to the Entheos album, the Our Time Comes For Us All, I think is what it's called, Time Something. Amazing. Cheney Crab. Like, if you're not listening to Entheos, you better be. And their new single, An End to Everything, so well recorded, so good sounding, will blow your mind. You need to listen to it. Listen to Entheos. Listen to An End to Everything by Entheos. It will blow your mind. It will blow your mind like the Confidence 50 will blow your mind. Okay, I think I've said enough about this speaker. I think the review is good enough. I hope it's good enough. This is going to be a very long review to edit. Okay, Dynaudio Confidence 50. What have we learned? Very well engineered. Extremely good sounding. I can't say enough good things about it. I think I'm starting to sweat. It is hot. It is a hot day here in Chicago. I'm starting to sweat just because I've been moving around a lot and recording this. I hope that you like this review. I hope that you get a chance to listen to the Confidence 50 or any speaker from the Confidence line, because it is a mind-blowing experience. It is a mind-blowing experience for the money that they charge for this speaker. And again, I got these used, and hearing them, I can't fathom the price of the used speaker, because how are they selling for so little when they sound so good? Where I honestly would have a hard time picking a $100,000 speaker over the Confidence 50. And the Confidence 50 is a third of the price. It's unbelievable. It is so good. Okay, before I start trailing off for another 2 minutes about how good the Confidence is again, let's wrap up the video. Thank you for watching. I know this is a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I hope you get to listen to the Confidence series. Hit that like button, subscribe, check the links below in the description, including my Patreon. Subscribe to the Patreon, help me out, help me be able to make more videos like this so that I can show you this awesome audiophile gear that I know all of you love as well. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for subscribing and following, and I will see you in the next one.